Good morning, everyone. I am going to be streaming a exciting which for a long time, all of my one place, but be able to access it lots of reasons. So I recently installed strapi, which fits in the category of headless. It doesn't necessarily serve a website by itself. Access it well. Strapi is open source. I'm not suggesting use by a long shot. Ticks most of the checkbox. Look for some audio here. Is that better on the audio? Try this a little closer here. More gain. All right, how's that? Better audio? Yes, okay, good. All right, so like I was saying, let me turn my own volume. This is too loud. Like I was saying, having a content management system where I store my content in one place but use it in lots of different places has been a goal of mine pretty much since I started doing training and talking publicly. I realized that I had a lot of content that I used over and over in different ways. I might use a piece of code for a talk and a presentation, but I might also use it in a blog post. Just lots of bits of content that I wanted to reuse in different ways, but didn't have an easy way to do that. And with our recent pandemic, had a little bit more time to explore those kinds of things. So I installed Strapi on a virtual machine, and I've been really happy with the results. So I'd kind of like to show you a little bit about what it's like. I'm going to start with the instance that's serving content live for me right now. So we're going to look at the admin interface of a Strapi instance that I'm using to feed my public website, briankettleson.com. This is a Svelte app. Actually, it's a Sapper app, which is the routed version of Svelte. And it's built and then exported and then served by Cloudflare. So this content that serves all of these different pages comes directly from, 500, there we go. Comes directly from a CMS, and you can tell I'm not the best JavaScript programmer ever because we shouldn't be serving 500 errors. And then some of these things, like the videos link here, is actually the result of a Node script that I run right before I publish the website. So this pulls from the YouTube API. And then I added this yesterday. I'm not sure if it's going to stay in this format, but the idea would be that the presentation slide decks would live right up here. And so I just cut and pasted a presentation that I did a while ago for the Stuttgart Go Meetup, and it works beautifully. And all of that content is stored in the CMS, which is kind of slick. So I'm not really sure if it's going to stay that way, because I'm not sure if I like the way that is reused. So then lastly, at the top of the blog, we've got blog posts. And each of these blog posts is, again, sourced from the content management system. So let's go take a look at that real quick. All right, so the content management system has the idea of collection types. And a collection type is basically what you would consider a table, a database. So I started off with the idea of articles. And an article is just a post in the blog. And if you look at one of them, they've got basic CMS things. They've got a title, whether or not it's live, a whole blob of markdown, featured image, slug, which is derived from the title, a publish date, and an excerpt. So let's take a look at this Azure DevOps CI setup in my blog here. Find it, here we go. So this is the exact same content. It's being served from the content management system, and it's actually being served live because this is a JavaScript app that runs queries in the background using a service worker. So you can see I make a call to content.brian.dev/articles and filter. It's probably really tiny to see in that query string, but I filter with live equals true and sort equals published at. So we're sorting by the publish date, descending, and only grabbing live articles. Then when we click on a single article, it prefetches that article information itself, and you see the information about articles and all the data in there. So let's look at the source code for that website. Let's see here. All right, so this is the Sapper website that powers briankettleson.com. And Sapper is a lot like Nuxt.js, or Nuxt is the Vue one. What's that? Gatsby, maybe? No, I don't remember what the React version is. Anyway, it's client-side driven, but it uses routes on the server side. So you create server-side routes, like index.svelte serves the index page, but then blog has an index route and then a slug route, and the slug is the article slug. So in order to pull data from the CMS for the index in the blog, we fetch the content.brian.dev/articles. So this is the same query we saw in the web page. Return it in JSON format, and then in the page itself, we just iterate through those posts and make an HTML page that has a list of those posts. In the slug version, do the same thing. We get the articles and then just compare the slug of the article to the path of the website. And if they're equal, return that as the post data and then display the post. I know that that is not optimal because I've already received the data in the index. And one of the next steps that I'll do is look to see if there's a cached version of this. But I was pretty excited to just get it working the way it is. So all of this data is pulled real time on the website, and you can see all the queries happen in the developer tools here. So projects pulls from the project. I'm going to sneeze. Project content type. And this is a completely different content type than the blog post. It's got a title and a description, a GitHub link. So sneezy. And then some markdown content for the project. So for Captain Hook, same thing. We've got a link to the repository and our content, and that's pretty much it. So the project type is a lot smaller and less complicated. Yes, it does fetch all the articles to view a single one. Fortunately, they're tiny, so it doesn't really matter that much. But that is absolutely an enhancement that should be made, because there's no reason not to fix that. Retrieve less. The response, let's see. It's tiny, but it doesn't matter. It should. Anyway, it's tiny. Oh, here we go. That can't be the total amount of data for that. Never mind. All right, so that's one use of this content. We have lots of content stored in the CMS, and I'm using the JSON API to fetch it and display it real time, which means that when I post a new article, it automatically publishes to the website as long as the published pages, here we go, articles, as long as that published live flag is on. So if I turn this live flag off, that article wouldn't be live yet. I do not have a preview system yet, so I can't take a look at articles that aren't yet published. It should be easy enough to do by just adding a query string in here to show articles that aren't yet published, but haven't built that yet. A little bit new in the JavaScript, so one step at a time. So I was pretty excited about this because A, it's a modern site and it's fast, really fast. It's served by Cloudflare workers, and I like it quite a bit. It's clean, and I can publish things without, I don't even need a GitHub Actions workflow. I don't need anything. There's no Netlify build. It's all just published as soon as I hit the live button and save the content. That's great. That is a pretty decent achievement of the goal that I had for this project. But it was only half of the goal. The other half of the goal was to be able to reuse that content any other place. So let's take a look at a different project. So this is a Hugo website, and it's absolutely the most basic possible Hugo website you could have. I just did Hugo new, and then I made one node script to pull my content. Now, if you're familiar with Hugo or you're not familiar with Hugo, it expects content to be in a content directory in Markdown format. So Hugo has no way of pulling from an API. All of your content needs to be in Markdown files locally on disk. And that doesn't really work well with my content management system plan. So I built a tiny little adapter. And if you're a Node.js developer, forgive me now because I don't know what I'm doing. It's really quick. Problem. Oh, isn't too bad. So what this does is pulls the same articles from the content management system, and then I build a front matter for the YAML that Hugo expects, and then write the content of the post, which is Markdown, as the second part of the file. So using this Node.js script, as long as I do it right before I run Hugo, then I end up with all of this content. Oh, where was the Azure CA? That's the same one we were looking at before, Azure DevOps CI setup. So I built front matter and exported it, or exported, what's the word? Saved it as YAML format, serialized it as YAML format, and then added that to the separator, the 3 dashes that Hugo expects around the front matter, and then the content of the post, which is the Markdown for each post. So literally 30-something lines of Node JavaScript here that creates articles in the right place, in the right format, and I'm reusing the same content that I have at the other site. So let's run it, and I'm going to delete all of these articles. Just delete them. Then in package JSON, I have a blog script, so I can just type yarn blog. And it says it created 32 pages. It should look exactly the same as they did before. So it pulls those pages from the CMS, and the script did very little massaging. One thing that I did was call URL slug, which is a Node.js NPM module, that gets rid of things that don't belong in a slug in a URL. So I changed the title to that. And you'll notice that I don't really have all of the front matter that a typical Hugo post would have. I don't have things like category in here yet. This was a proof of concept that I did last night. But if I run Hugo, it's running on localhost. So here's the exact same content running in a Hugo server. Go to all posts. There's our Azure DevOps thing. Same images, same text, same content, same date, everything's there. So this proof of concept really showed me that I'm getting close to the goal that I had, which was keeping the content in one place, but consuming it from lots of different places. So let's move to the next evolution that I added last night, which is presentations. And presentations, I'm not really sure how this is going to land because currently I have presentations in here as a single, a single record. So we've got page content, which is the part that's shown. Presentations. What's these? I get lost. Okay, page content, which is the content that's shown here. And we've got, then we've got the title, which is title, which is shown up here. And then the slide content, this is markdown that is passed into Reveal.js. So most of my slides are written in Reveal.js format, so this is a particularly handy thing for me because I have all of the slides already in markdown format. But I'm not sure how much this helps me in terms of reusability because all of the slides, while they're still available in the content management, the individual slides are buried inside this big markdown blob. So a question that I have for the future is, will I create a presentation that has many slides? Using the Rails has many type format. I've got one presentation that has many slides, and a slide can belong to multiple presentations, and they have an ordering to them. So it's an array of slides in a particular order. I'm not sure if I want to go that far. A little bit of cutting and pasting doesn't hurt as long as they're available. So I don't know the answer to that one yet. I'll probably experiment with it a little bit more. But in order to make this presentation bit work, I had to, let's see, back to this workspace. In order to make that work, I had to jump through a lot more hoops than I expected because Reveal.js, I wasn't able to make it work as a library, an NPM module in my Svelte application. I don't know why. Probably has something to do with AMD and CommonJS and things that I don't understand about the JavaScript world. So in order to get that content, I have way too many little scripts here that I have to run. So we have to get the slides first. I've got a get slides script. So yarn get slides, and that gets all of the presentations and writes them to a single presentations.json file. And then make slides iterates through that presentations.json file, parses it, and then for each presentation creates a slug and writes a file in a temp slides directory. And then finally, that's not the right one. Oh, finally, it's in the make file. I didn't get any sleep last night, so I've completely forgotten how this works. So finally, in the make file, iterate through the temp slides directory and call pandoc to convert from Markdown into Reveal.js format and put that in the static directory under slides. I don't think this step is necessary. I'll probably have to consult with smarter friends than me in order to figure out how to get rid of pandoc, because I really don't believe that this is necessary. And if I were doing my website in Hugo, this wouldn't even be an issue, because I could use a different layout for the slides, and I could include all the Reveal.js bits in the slide layout, and that would be a simple issue. But I'll figure that one out later. Right now, it's running through pandoc, which is kind of fun anyway, because it was fun learning about pandoc, all of the things that pandoc do. So in the routes, I've got presentations route, and it fetches all of the presentations, lists a index page of the presentations here, and then for slug, for the individual presentation page, it just does a redirect. window.location.replace slides/slug. So that's the static HTML page that was created by pandoc that has the slides in it. So when we go to that page, get Reveal.js slides. Don't like that multiple format of, or multiple processing requirement. I'm positive that there's a way to get around that. I just need to do some more research and figure out why I can't make Reveal.js work in Svelte. The real issue that I had was I wasn't able to instantiate a Reveal.js object, or I guess it's an object in JavaScript. Don't know. But it was a really fun learning experiment, getting presentations up and running. So I have a version of all of this up on GitHub. Where that is. Here we go. So a starter. I haven't finished it. Just a second here. Okay, so at github.com/bkettleson, I've got a starter repo that you can pull down if you want to try something like this. I have an Azure VM, and I'm going to run this from scratch and show you roughly what it looked like to get this CMS set up and running. So this is an exact clone of this repository, the CMS repository, and inside of it there's a Docker Compose file. Two directories. The app directory stores configuration changes that you make to Strapi, and the data directory stores configuration, or the data for Postgres. So let's take a look at the Docker Compose file. I'm running this on the same server that my content is already running on now. So I'm going to change things like the live ports. I'm going to run this on 1338 instead of 1337, which is the default port for Strapi. And then I'm going to change the names of these services so I don't end up with the same Docker names. So I'll call this one CMS. I'll call the other one G. Means my database name is, or database host is going to change to PG, and didn't publish the database port, so that should be fine. And I need to change so in theory this should pull up now. So it's creating the two containers. Looks good so far. And VM stuff is happening. And while this comes online, go to this VM. And you can see that I have this set up to respond on cloud.brian.dev, and there should be nothing there current because I have not started anything. Yeah, so bad gateway. There's nothing listening on those ports yet. So all this webpack stuff is happening. Strapi is building itself. Not really sure what are the things that happen. Oh, server couldn't start. Not found PG. Database host PG should be fine. Have it backwards. Said CMS is a link service P, which is undefined. So the service P go. Nope, can't find PG. Been too long since I messed with Docker Compose. This is database host. There we go. Nope, still an idiot. S can't find. What am I doing wrong? Need a link. Host entries by default. Theory, yes. Mount point directly, create a subdirectory under the mount. Still can't find PG. All right, so let's go back. What's our mount point? Progress, it's got a problem. Mount. So we need a data. Hooray. All right, so it looks like we're good on the database. And CMS exited. Can't do that again. Save here. Delete it, start over. This wouldn't be so hard if I wasn't trying to get around. Why is it looking for G? So confused. Oh, I know why. All of this crap. All right, let's tear down .compose again. Have app again. Oh my goodness. Okay. So when the Strapi app starts, it generates or saves a bunch of files in the app directory, which is why it's a Docker volume. And that's why it didn't matter what I was changing in the Docker compose file, because it had already written that stuff disk. And to show you, here's the Strapi instance that's actually serving the content.brian.dev right now. And here's all of the data for that. So Strapi generates all of this stuff. Whatever reason. All right, now the website is building with webpack. Things are happening. Okay, so we should be able to go to cloud.brian.dev/admin. And we'll make a new username. Password. Started. All right, so we have one collection type with users, and this is built into the system. So we need to create a new user for external things. And we also need to create all of the content types we want. So let's create our first content type just to get started. Something interesting here. So let's create a collection called posts. And we'll have a title. It'll be short text, and it will be paired. And let's do a rich text field called content. And we'll make that one required. Finish. We have a tiny little content type for posts with a title and content. If we go to save this, it recompiles the UI in background here. It is interesting, but it does. And then drops us back into collection types. So we posts, and we can create a new post. The title, Hello World. And the hello content. Save it. So it added an ID field for us. It added created at, updated at. So we got a few freebies in terms of the content management. We know that our content is at cloud.brian.dev, and you can follow along here. Let's open up their GraphQL interface. plugin that I haven't enabled yet. So let's go into plugins. And I enable that. Enough to find out. Go to Strapi documentation. Plugins, GraphQL. So we need to yarn strapi install GraphQL from our container. So that'll be interesting. Let's go into the CMS directory. And we've got this CMS container here. So we're going to do docker exec -it bin bash. All right, that drops us directly in the app directory where we copy and paste our yarn strapi install bit. That'll take a minute. Rebuilds the UI. Which takes quite a while. All right, so it's done. It took a minute to install it. Now if we go back to our plugins, let's change the page and go back. Now GraphQL shows as a plugin. Should be able to go to the GraphQL. And now we've got GraphQL pointing against our content. It probably won't though, because I'm going to do posts. And did we have in there a title? And it says forbidden. So we tried to run a GraphQL query and it's forbidden because we have not given the public the ability to go and look at our content. So let's go to roles and permissions, public, strapi admin interface, and we'll say find and find one. The public can both list and pull an individual content item for that one content type, which was posts. So go back to our playground, hit go. Now we've got data, posts, title, hello world. I'm going to add content, add that to the GraphQL query, and now we've got content from the hello content. So very quickly and almost painlessly, we ended up with a GraphQL query, and we're able to grab data directly from the CMS, and that's real live happy GraphQL, and it works really nicely. So if we wanted to, we could go create a Gatsby blog with this using the Gatsby Strapi plugin that pulls GraphQL, or we can call this from the command line too. So let's look at the API for pulling data out using Perl. I'm going to move back to my local machine. See Perl-H set location JSON cloud.plan.dev posts. So I just did a curl and I hit their API endpoint for regular content not using GraphQL. So this is just the JSON API endpoint that I hit with curl. And I'm using this JSON API endpoint more than I'm using GraphQL, mostly because I don't know what I'm doing too well in GraphQL yet. And it's easier for me personally to use the JSON API endpoint. I have explored reading this API in Go and in Rust and from Node.js, from Svelte, and from what else? I guess that's about it right now. But I've hit it from lots of different places, and it's really easy. It's exactly what you'd expect. You get back an array of your content type that you can then manipulate. So if we go back to code that was pulling the, say, blog posts, for example, it's pulling content from content.brian.dev/articles. So articles is the name of the collection. And then down at the bottom, you're doing each for each on that and grabbing the post slug, the post title, excerpt, and publish date, putting that on our index page of posts. So in general, I found it incredibly simple to do this. I am not by any means a front-end developer, and I was able to do this in Sapper with very little trouble, to be honest. I just found a couple examples of using APIs inside of a Sapper page to pull the data. It's absolutely possible to do this using GraphQL instead. I didn't do it because I don't know how. So why don't we explore changing my blog to using GraphQL instead of using the HTTP JSON API, because why not? It's fun to learn. So I'm going to shut down actually, no, I'll leave it up online. I'll leave cloud.brian.dev up online for a little bit. If you want to go play with that, feel free. You can play with the GraphQL endpoint. So that's at cloud.brian.dev/GraphQL. You can grab posts, and you can even hit the posts API endpoint if you just type posts and then the right content type. Fail. There we go. So you can get posts directly from that. You won't be able to add them. The public doesn't have permissions to do that. But I'll leave that online until the end of the stream here. So let's figure out how to do content with GraphQL in a Sapper app. This will be fun. So this answer to everything. This is the source for the website. Find out Sapper GraphQL. And we've got a guy pulling from a person pulling from GraphQL and Firebase, GraphQL descriptions. Setting express GraphQL, like it's adding GraphQL server. Don't need that part. We would like data. An example. So there's Apollo Boost, GraphQL tag. Shot. This might fit. So we want Apollo Boost and GraphQL tag. Yarn, add Apollo. Here. Sure what I'm doing with GraphQL out soon. All right, now this is something. So new Apollo. I probably need to talk louder. Let me turn on, I bring the microphone a little closer. I've got compression going, so the microphone will mute when I'm not talking, because there's a lot of background noise in my office, too many computers and fans running. Sorry about that. And turn down that moment here. All right, is that better? Just turn off the noise gate. We should have a little bit of a constant background hum, but at least it won't clip my voice. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so let's, we're going to add this GraphQL new Apollo client. Okay. All right, let's try it. So let's do it with something simple like projects. Actually, let me see if I have any unstaged git log. Where's git log? Oh, that was just me playing around. Okay, cat echo static. All right, so now we can go into, what did we decide to do? Projects, because it's the smallest one. And we'll go up to projects. Where's my code here? We're not going to use a module anymore. Module context runs on the server side, not on the I think it runs on the server side, not on the individual request side. So this will be client side only. And we're going to add our import statements. Hope this works. Kind of fun. And then on the on mount, we'll add our query. So on mount is important in Sapper specifically because Sapper renders server side and it also has client side hydration. And if you want something to only happen on the client, you have to run it in an on mount event so it only happens on the client. All right, so let's see where that last query was that we ran. Let's go back to the GraphQL client for my actual blog. All right, so this has articles. It's got a bunch of stuff here. And let's try to run this one. See what happens. End up with too many quotes there. I think I did. To have some data for the page. How is he showing this data? Oh, down at the bottom. Okay, so we need an export to export our data somewhere. There we go. Wrong place. All right, now it's saying articles isn't used anywhere. So we'll say articles equals result. But result dot what? Data. Dot articles. There we go. Oh, Luke, thank you for pointing out that module scopes run once instead of the scope for regular scripts. So module scope only runs once for that route instead of for every time that component is mounted. I appreciate that. All right, so now we've got articles being pulled theoretically from our Apollo client, and we'll probably end up with some errors because I'm using the wrong. Oh, wait, we're on the project, so we need a projects query here, don't we? So projects. Let's see what we're using here. We've got a slug and a title and a description. So we need slug. Perfect. Oops. My fingers are not working today. Okay, so now we've got all of the fields that we need in theory, as long as there's no date on here. I didn't see one. All right, so let's try this. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? It won't work. Projects is not defined. Oh. All right, cross your fingers. We're going to go to projects, see what happens. We get a lot of nothing. What's our error? Failed to load connection. That's garbage. We don't care about that. Each only iterates over array-like objects. So the question is, what are we getting? So query projects. Let's do something like console.log. Let's see what we get. I'm going to go ahead and restart the server because I found that the hot module reloading isn't always very accurate. And we'll reload it. I don't see any console logging happening. Each projects. Not sure what I'm doing wrong here. So I've got a projects export, and then I'm grabbing data projects, result.data projects. That should be okay. My console log didn't. Let me try that. Oh, I bet you're right. Can't iterate over nothing. So we need to make it an array to start with so that it can iterate over nothing while it's being mounted. And that would probably be easier to do as a promise down here instead of resolving it up on top. But again, these are things that I'm not very good at yet. All right, so now we don't have an error, which is a better start. My developer tools. There we go, so no error. Oh, somewhere we have to tell it where our Apollo client needs to talk to. It's trying to talk to localhost right now, and that isn't going to work. So where is the Apollo client config? Uh-oh. Got to figure that part out. So let's go figure out how to configure Apollo client. Apollo boost. Somebody mentioned on Twitter that they didn't want to stream because it just meant watching them Google things all the time. I am 100% okay with that because that's what developers do. We Google things, and you can't keep the domain of everything in your head. You just can't. So I'm unapologetic about Googling all the things. All right, so we need a URI here. GraphQL. Let's give that a shot. Didn't seem to fail compiling, which is a good sign. Whoa, look at that. We've got GraphQL data happening real time. Projects. Look at that. That's a huge win. So easy to replace those HTTP posts with GraphQL data. And that's kind of awesome. So what happens when we click on an individual one? It did a preload, and I think the individual one is still loading. Where's the code for that? The individual one is still loading the content from a JSON request. So let's change that and make the individual one. I wonder if we can use a store here. I haven't done stores in Sapper yet, so I don't know if I can. Let's do it the long way first. We'll just copy and paste this code from here. And here. We don't need the module anymore. Oops. Go. And instead of having projects, we're going to have a project. And our query is going to have a where. So I need to figure that out because I'm not good at GraphQL yet. So we need query for projects. And you notice that strapi creates these content types automatically for you, which is kind of cool. So I didn't have to create, here we go, project input. So I'm going to have a named query where we do what? We want a slug. So slug. I don't remember how to do GraphQL queries. Shoot. Let's Google it again. Because why not? There we go. So we just need the name and a value. So slug. We're declaring it up here, and that's a string. That. I think that's still wrong, though. Ah, there we go. $sign. Now it's a variable. And the slug was going to be what? Captain Hook. Then I need a where. And where here. That's not right, though. I want... Oh, maybe it is. I don't think it is, though. Oh, it is. Perfect. Okay. So now we've got our project query, and I can... Oops, not in Vim. Cut and paste this. Have to figure out how to build this in right page. Good. Okay, so in order to get the query string, I'm going to have to use the module context again. Here, I'm just going to copy and paste this from another page. Oops. All right, so we don't care about any of this. We're going to return page.params, and I'll just do it like this because I've already done this once. Project. There we go. So we get the slug out of the page parameters and return slug, which means we now need to have a slug variable. And then on mount, we're going to find out just how poorly I know how to concatenate strings in JavaScript. Can I do that? Sure would be nice if I could. Let's see. Projects, that failed. Why did it fail? 500. What's the 500 for? Where did we go? Oh, we probably haven't fixed all of the bottom part yet, have we? Nope. So there is result data. I suspect that in our playground we just have, we want project. Oh, look at that. Oh, okay, so I could cheat because I'm lame, and I could say result.data.project 0, and that should work. At least it should stop it from blowing up. Marked. Oh yeah, I didn't import markdown in here. Let's fix that real quick. So that should be happy now. Marked input parameters undefined. Marked project dot content. We're not pulling content, and we're not pulling GitHub. So we better pull all of those. Input parameter undefined or null. Marked project.content. Project.content. I don't see a problem. Restart it. Nope. Marked input parameter. Let's just get rid of marked for now, because I have no idea. So we'll just dump raw content. Should be fine. You can see the issues that I have with hot module reloading. I don't know what's up with that. Sometimes I even have to close the whole browser. All right. So still bio is not defined. Well, let's just get rid of it. We don't need it today. GraphQL unexpected EOF. Huh. So my query's bad. Where is my query bad? So I've got 1, 2. Let's copy and paste the whole thing. Here. Oh wait, that's bad. Okay, so that's fine. You need to pass in. Oh. So smart. Yes, thank you, Loot. I hope I'm saying that right, Loot. I need to pass in the query parameters. So I need to do this. Then in the query, I need to have something like parameters. When I make the call for Apollo, where's Apollo? But I had this up here. documentation. No, we don't want React. We just want regular. Oh, there goes the dog. I guess we're going to look at the React stuff. Fetching data, queries. Somewhere in there I have to specify the query string here. Variables, so I need a variables. Let's try variables. And then should just be able to do slug. Like that. Yep. All right, let's restart it. This whole variable thing is fancy. Look at us, getting all GraphQL-ish. Okay. Projects, Captain Hook. Oh ho, we have success. Something is logging this event. I don't know what that is, but we do have success, and we are now pulling content directly from GraphQL for the page. And let's see if that's happening real time. So it is. It's calling GraphQL real time in the background, and that's awesome. I think that's a great place to end this stream. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. I'll probably be streaming again soon because I'm really excited about this idea of keeping my content in one place and moving it into different venues, you know, keeping it in a content management repository, but also consuming it from Hugo, for example, or from a Sapper website, or even other places that I've yet to explore. So this has been really fun, and I'm very excited about where this can go. Thanks to everybody for following along, and especially Lewitt for all of the awesome advice on the GraphQL bits. I appreciate that quite a lot. So thank you all, and I hope you're staying safe and having fun.